Thanks for joining us. This is the week ahead where we showcase some of the events that will take place next week that would be of interest to you. We are broadcasting live from our house to yours. Let us know your thoughts using the hashtag AWANI News on our social sites. My name is Ibrahim Sani. I am joined by my colleague Hafiz Marzuki.
Thanks, Ibrahim. As always, it is the second week of July, and of course, we're going to start with, I dare say, our favorite topic in each of these editions, which is the vaccination program.
That's right. But before we jump to the vaccination program, Hafiz, I just want to ask you about your own personal experience on the EMCO. It's been 2 days. How has it been for you?
Well, I think over in my area, or rather my apartment, some of the worker, some of the residents actually who lives in this building are actually quite confused to what degree is the MCO is, because my wife actually went to buy some groceries yesterday, and other residents she met along the way gave her puzzled looks that, you're not supposed to go out during MCO, but there are no barbed wires around my area. So this MCO classification for Kuala Lumpur and Selangor differs in some manner. And I think, of course, being in the media as we are, Ibrahim, we are more attuned to what actually is going on. But apparently a lot of those in the public are not too sure exactly what this MCO entails. What about you, Ibrahim?
It's strange. Some neighbors are afraid to go out of the house. Some neighbors are just freely walking their dogs, exercising as if there's nothing wrong. So it's like a mixed bag of behaviors. So that's why we need to talk about our first story, which is the vaccination program. Hafiz, you're right. This is a hot topic that is beloved by this show. The minister in charge of the vaccination program, Kari Jamaluddin, says that in this coming week, there would be a ramping up of the vaccination daily rate. Right now, we've seen up to 250,000 daily doses being administered, but this number is only going to go up, according to him outright. The issue on hand is not just, of course, about the vaccination rate, but the need for us to re-examine the status of COVID in this country. The talk of COVID being an endemic is now starting to be supported by science. Here he is talking about the issue.
We will also be expanding our vaccination program for essential economic sectors that are operating during phase 1 of the recovery plan. These workers have to physically report for duty and are therefore at risk from COVID transmission. We will be focusing on the manufacturing, transport, construction and plantation sectors first, with a target of vaccinating at least 300,000 workers over the next few weeks. With the prevalence of the B16172 Delta variant in our country, we will continue to draw on real-world data on vaccine effectiveness against this and possibly other emerging variants. Like many other countries, we are now studying whether a third booster dose might be necessary. We need to accept that COVID-19 is most probably endemic, possibly requiring regular vaccination, much like the flu jab in certain countries.
So I just tweeted out something very interesting, which is just because something is endemic doesn't make it less lethal. The one that I tweeted out is about dengue rates. If you know, Hafiz, in 2019, about 138 Malaysians died of dengue. This is in stark contrast to COVID-19, which saw 5,500 people dead because of COVID. 2 of the dead I know personally. And just because something is moved from the pandemic to an endemic, it doesn't make it less lethal. But in Singapore, like I said, if something is good, we should see how they do it. Singapore is doing it. They've stopped counting COVID numbers. They've stopped talking about getting the COVID numbers down to 0. They are now starting to talk about how to make somebody live with COVID just as much as what KJ is talking about right now. What do you think of this endemic-pandemic classification, Hafiz?
I mean, you can see clearly Kyrie has been going on this, I would say, it's hardly a narrative, but you can hear it clearly in how he speaks about handling this current COVID-19 issue, I would say. I don't know whether it's pandemic or endemic, and it's clear that We are not talking about herd immunity as much as we do before. We're now talking about vaccinating as many people as possible. And I do concur with you, Ibrahim. I mean, turning it into an endemic or calling it an endemic doesn't mean it's less lethal. I think what it means is we just have to change our approach to it and cannot just assume that once everyone is vaccinated, or 85%, whatever the magic number is that we arrive to a few months from now, it does not mean that the battle against COVID-19 is over. In fact, it's going to be a long, drawn-out battle, and I guess we just have to mentally prepare ourselves for what's to come after, I guess, 6 months or 9 months from now. Ibrahim.
So in the week ahead, please read more about endemic versus pandemic and versus the kind of war that we are facing right now. There's going to be a lot more news on COVID-19 plus pandemic, so keep an eye out on that. And just like what we saw in the clip just now, KJ was talking about taking flu jabs every year. There is a lot of call for right now a third booster dose that might have to be taken. Now, we've heard of this item before, but this is the first time that a public health expert is now saying that it's important. A public health expert, Professor Syed Muhammad, says that a third dose must also be in the works for us, i.e. must also be considered by the government in order for us to truly look at managing this pandemic better, or endemic. Here he is talking about the issue.
Kita akan mempunyai berbagai varian baru, dan varian-varian ini mungkin akan akan menyebabkan vaksin yang kita ada sekarang akan menghadapi cabaran, dan mungkin vaksin booster ini akan disesuaikan dengan varian-varian yang ada pada masa hadapan untuk pastikan ia tetap efektif lebih daripada 90% seperti mana yang kita ada sekarang. Tapi pada masa ini vaksin yang ada sekarang masih lagi berkesan untuk varian Delta dan juga beberapa varian yang lain. Masa hadapan kita harus mungkin melakukan perkara tersebut. Langkah yang seterusnya adalah negara-negara membangun seperti Malaysia dan sebagainya akan sentiasa menghadapi masalah kekurangan vaksin. Jadi oleh itu kita harus berusaha untuk menghasilkan vaksin sendiri, tetapi ini bukan merupakan satu perkara yang boleh dilakukan dalam sekelip mata. Dan saya lihat bahawa Kementerian Kesihatan ada membuat pengumuman baru-baru ini bahawa mungkin kita dapat menyiapkan vaksin kita menjelang 2024. Jadi kita harapkan bahawa tenaga dan usaha diberikan dan juga kita memberikan kerjasama penuh kepada kerajaan untuk menghasilkan vaksin sendiri, dan vaksin ini mungkin akan dapat menyelesaikan sebahagian daripada masalah yang kita akan hadapi.
So 8 million people have been vaccinated at least a single dose. About 2 million people, closer to 3 million now being vaccinated to second dose. But that's not just part of the story that needs to be told. Another part is people after getting 2 doses of vaccination are still getting COVID-19. One such case is, of course, the cases that are currently happening in hospitals across the country, but more so in Klang Valley hospitals, like Hospital Klang, like Hospital Kuala Lumpur, where patients and doctors and staff, like nurses and cleaners, like Radicare cleaners, for instance, are now contracting COVID despite being vaccinated both doses. And of course, it has always been said that just because you are vaccinated double dose of COVID vaccine doesn't take away the risk of you contracting it, but it does quite considerably reduce that risk to a point where it might be down to single-digit possibility of you being hospitalized. My question to you, Hafiz, is this: even without the COVID, were you taking your flu jabs annually, or was it something that is like a passerby thing? If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, you don't think too much of it. What would be some of your reactions, personally, on a personal level, on you having to take a third dose booster shot for COVID vaccine, perhaps even a shot every single year moving forward?
I think looking at how COVID-19 mutates, or I mean the progress of this particular virus, I mean we're talking about the very lethal and deadly and problematic Delta variant. And of course, I understand that variants evolve from time to time. In fact, maybe 1 year or 2 years from now, we'll probably be talking about the Omega variant or the Psi variant. But I think I think it's an ongoing thing, right? Just like the regular flu jabs. And you're right, Ibrahim. Actually, I've not been regularly taking my flu jabs every year. In fact, it's more of a convenience thing, right? If sometimes they do come over to the office and offer us a few jabs, and I say, yeah, sure. Or if I happen to go to the clinic and they say, we're offering you jabs, I don't actively seek it out. But I think when it comes
They
to
call
COVID,
they call it opportunistic inoculation. That's what they call it, opportunistic inoculation.
Exactly, but I don't think I can maintain the same behavior for COVID. I think I have to actively seek out the booster shot. And looking at how things are going, I would assume the booster shot would also be part of a national immunization plan. No matter what form it may take, I'm not sure, but I'm sure when we're talking about having another shot, because we want to ensure that the population is continuously vaccinated. We cannot be just we have to remain vigilant about COVID-19. We can't afford for another new variant to suddenly sprout out in Malaysia and cause us to go into another whole set of lockdowns again after majority of the population fully vaccinated. So I think it's a bit early to talk about booster shot, but it's a good thing to it's in the horizon. We're looking to it, and it's good that we ensure that the people out there actually understands that after your 2 doses of COVID-19 vaccine, it's not over. It might go to 3rd, 4th, maybe a yearly shot. Ibrahim.
All right, thanks. We'll go for one short break before we continue on with the week ahead. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is the week ahead. My name is Ibrahim Sani. Hafiz Marzuki joins us. This is broadcasting live right now from Astro, AWANI, and from our homes. Our next story revolves around the relief efforts of how the community is helping each other. Veteran social spokesperson Tan Sri Lee Lam Tai argues that there could be more urgency for the government to now funnel funds into non-governmental organizations in order for us to help these NGOs with their relief efforts. Especially when we talk about the government trying to help people directly, this could be a way for it to start directing financial assistance to NGOs from the government. Here is the plea that he is making right now.
Melalui peruntukan itu tersebut, saya harap bahawa mana-mana NGO lah yang dapat diberikan peruntukan dapat mempergiatkan program advokasi mental mengikut kawasan-kawasan yang berdekatan, terutamanya mereka hendak menumpukan perhatian terhadap golongan tertentu yang amat desak. Dan antara program advokasi mental yang boleh diadakan ialah ini boleh dilakukan secara maya ataupun online. Ini seperti Let's Talk Minda Sehat atau apa-apa bantuan sokongan psikososial yang diperlukan oleh golongan-golongan itu tertentu.
Hafiz, what do you think? NGOs receiving funds from government coffers, do you think that this is helping their cause, or it basically defeats that purpose of NGOs being non-governmental in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, there's many ways to look at this, Ibrahim. But I'm going to take the argument, or rather, what we're talking about, a step further. Every year we've heard about the National Welfare Department, in this case JKM, Jabatan Kebajikan Masyarakat, being allocated certain amount of funds to actually help people who are in need. And yeah, it's true that you do need to help these NGOs so that they can, I would say, perform better. Because at the end of the day, NGOs do work in a very localized or hyper-localized situation where they really know the community around them, and they know who's really in need, who's in need of what, and when exactly. But I think, as far as the government is concerned, it's not just about giving funds, right? Because every year you hear that some amount or some allocation of funds are being given, and yet you do hear stories of people falling through the cracks. So I think the National Welfare Department should go a step further, especially in pandemic times, to actually become the coordinator for all these, welfare giving or welfare efforts in the particular locality or a particular area. Because I think right now is very fragmented in terms of how the NGOs are working, because some are helping this section of people, others are looking at other places. So I think the National Welfare Department, this is the best opportunity for them to actually call everyone to the table, have a proper discussion, coordinate the efforts to ensure that, NGO A do this, NGO B do this, and Welfare Department would get to do everything else. Because at the end of the day, all the data, all the registry is actually with the government. So I think it is useful for the National Welfare Department to actually share some level of this information with the NGOs involved in helping these people, NGOs who actually does good work, so that we can actually help everyone in need. Ibrahim.
I think that defeats the purpose, because when we talk about coordinating events and meetings, this all takes time. Right now, people literally need food, let alone money, right? They need food. People are waving white flags. And I agree with you on one point, which is NGOs know the people that they're serving. NGOs know the community that they are operating out of. But there's still issues of authenticity, whether or not the money that they are sourcing from the public, people like you and me, Hafiz, and when we give the funds, our own funds, however little or a lot that we want to give, whether or not it actually is arriving at the NGO, whether or not it is being used by the NGO. All this is the operational aspect of it. But the bottom line is this: people need help. NGOs are there to help. Whether or not they are enabled or otherwise remains to be the issue. And if the government wants to help, they can come in. But I think by giving cash is a lot easier than coordinating items together. But that's not just a part of it. The moral of the story is this: how often are you getting, or how frequent are you getting WhatsApp messages about NGOs promoting their behaviors right now? I think it's important for us to take note and highlight the fact that they are aggressive in trying to help out communities across the country, Sabah, Sarawak, Johor, Kelantan. I think it's important for us to enable any kind of assistance to them, even if it's using government money. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's definitely true, Ibrahim. And I think one way to look at it is, of course, in pandemic times, desperate times calls for desperate measures. It's good in terms of channeling money, because you're right. Actually, I've been receiving a lot of messages, not just on WhatsApp, Telegram. In fact, even if you look at Facebook, you would know that who's actually in need of help, and which organization are actually looking into helping them. So I think a more concerted effort would definitely help them in the long run. Ibrahim.
Okay, we move on to our next story, which is on the issue of workers in critical sectors getting vaccinated. If you are a business owner, you should be ready for the government to call you up to allow for your workers to be vaccinated soon. That's happening very soon, as early as next week. Here is Kari Jamaluddin again on this issue.
Sepanjang fasa pertama Pelan Pemulihan Negara, terdapat beberapa sektor yang dibenarkan beroperasi melibatkan sektor ekonomi penting dan perlu, seperti sektor pembuatan, pengangkutan, pembinaan serta peladangan. Golongan pekerja dalam sektor ini masih perlu keluar bekerja dan secara langsung terdedah kepada risiko jangkitan COVID-19. Untuk itu, kita akan terus mempergiat usaha bagi melaksanakan vaksinasi kepada mereka dengan sasaran 300,000 pekerja divaksinasi dalam tempoh beberapa minggu yang akan datang.
And that is it, right? Because in the weeks to come, you're going to be receiving a few phone calls from the government, from NGOs, from all vested authorities, trying to ask you for help and trying for you to be part of this help that they are going to give out. And the help can come in the form of them donating food and services, but it's also important for us to acknowledge that business owners particularly those having workers with the size of 50 to 500 workers, they're going to be targeting you as well. In that clip that KJ made, and he made it in both languages, in English and in Bahasa Malaysia, he was talking aggressively about the size of the PPVs ataupun pusat vaksin, and it comes in various shapes and sizes. There's mega PPVs that we've been reading about, but there are also smaller PPVs that are serving communities in the orang asal communities, in communities that are not easily accessible by road. And if each and every one of us think about the kind of efforts that the government is doing when it comes to vaccinating the people, it's a mega mammoth. I don't know, Hafiz. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that sometimes business owners would do all they can to make sure that their workers are being vaccinated, but sometimes it's not that easy, particularly if you are not part of the bigger town aspect or even in the sub-rural aspect. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that they want to get their workers vaccinated, and in the weeks to come, do you see this being done, i.e. Do you feel that PICK will actually be able to vaccinate these workers in these areas?
Well, actually, when I heard the news that Kyrie announced that, I thought, it's about time, right? Actually, in fact, this kind of thing should even started way earlier, because you're talking about lives and livelihoods, and the approach to pandemic or endemic now, or the approach of handling COVID-19 should not just be balancing lives and livelihood. Both of it should be aligned. And I think vaccinating workers is a key part of it, and it is important that this goes off well, so that more sectors or bigger chunks of the economy can reopen and start their operations, so that we can kickstart back our economy. And I think, you're right, Ibrahim, in noting all these challenges. It will be a mammoth task, especially. But I'm hearing good things, right? So far, Kyrie has spoken about more than 3 million vaccines are coming this month. In fact, he has underlined that July, August will be very important for the PIC or NIP, National Immunization Program, for the country, because this is where I believe the large chunk of the vaccination rate will take place. And I do sincerely hope that the companies will get their workers vaccinated. Those who are given the chance, please do take this opportunity to get your workers vaccinated, because we have the fight against COVID-19 is about outpacing the virus, right? And this is important. This is a key aspect in terms of fighting the virus, which is vaccinating as many people as possible, Ibrahim.
One thing that we have to also acknowledge is the kind of vaccines that we are taking, because while we are celebrating the fact that Japan has just donated 1 million AstraZeneca vaccine, and it has arrived in Malaysia, and that's why many of us are now receiving our second appointments on our MySejahtera app. There has been some issues when it comes to AZ recognition amongst European countries. Malaysians who do receive AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccines may not be able to travel freely within Europe, because of the EU only recognizes vaccines approved by the European Medicines Agency, EMA. But noises like these must not deter us from getting vaccinated, either AZ or Sinovac or Pfizer or even Moderna or whatever. I think it's important for us to just take the vaccine, ignore all these news and ignore all this noise, in order for us to be able to get that. I wouldn't want to use herd immunity, but just get 85% of Malaysians vaccinated. I don't know. That's what I think.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that front, Ibrahim. But in fact, when I heard about these so-called restrictions on certain type of vaccines, and in this case is the AstraZeneca vaccine, I was actually quite surprised. And I did actually have a chat with my wife about this, and she seems to think actually that eventually every one of these kinks will actually be ironed out. Because I don't think it makes sense, right, for you if you were a recipient of the AstraZeneca vaccine to be denied the same rights or privileges or whatever you want to call it compared to other recipient of vaccines of other vaccines. So I think more attention should be given to this. We need to iron it out, maybe in terms of getting a different booster shot or anything. But you are right. Everyone has to commit to this vaccination process, and I do want to see the end of vaccination process as soon as possible. With I dare say more than 95% of Malaysian vaccinated. Ibrahim.
Agreed. There you go. I fully agree with you. But that's all the time that we have for you on this episode of The Week Ahead. Make sure you get the latest news and updates on the COVID-19 vaccines from our news channel at astroawani.com and on Astro Awani app. Remember, you can share your views, your concerns using the hashtag Awani News. I see there's a lot of flags of different colors being flown from my neighborhood right now. They are all sending messages. So just listen to those that need help and be aware of your surroundings, because sometimes there's no point you having a full belly during dinner, but your neighbor goes hungry. So help each other. That's it. My name is Ibrahim Sani.
And I'm Hafiz Mazuki signing off for this edition of The Week Ahead. Good night.